You can call me Mystic Mike because I predict these things.
UFC 314 just wrapped, and I'm going to give you my reaction and breakdown to all the fights, including how I did on my picks, which I did pretty well this card. I went 10-2 overall, I believe I did, including an awful stoppage by the ref. And then Volkanovski just looking like vintage Volk in his win over Diego Lopes. So I'm going to start off at the bottom here. Nora Cornell taking on Haley Cowan. I had Nora Cornell to win this one by knockout or decision, and she got it done by rear naked choke. I did not see that one coming, did not have that on my bingo card. Didn't think she was the greatest grappler, let alone submission artist, but was able to get it done over Haley Cowan, who just doesn't seem, she's just not very good. Got a takedown early in round one. Second round, Nora Cornell was able to get it to the ground, get the rear naked choke. So good win for Nora Cornell, 36 years old. Not really sure what her ceiling is in the sport, but not a lot of fighters, honestly, at 135 pounds. So finishing fights. So we'll see what's next for her. But yeah, I don't know. Moving on, Marco Tulio versus Tresean Gore. I had Marco Tulio to get this one done. I feel like this was a very easy pick. Not very high on Tresean Gore. I don't think he's the most talented guy in the world, and Marco Tulio, coming from the Fighting Nerds, really lived up to his name, and that team, bringing them to 19-0 total for the UFC, for their total records as a group, or as a team, I should say. Looked great. Looked like an absolute savage at middleweight, future title contender. Beating him up on the feet, kind of beating him everywhere. Tresean Gore just never really in that fight, honestly. And Tulio just kind of had his way for him for 2.5 rounds, or for a round and a half before he finally got the finish. So great performance on Marco Tulio. Guys looked really good as of late. I think that's his 10th fight in a row. So huge ceiling for this guy. Curious to see who they put him up against. Middleweight's kind of shallow at the time, so good to see some new blood in the division. Sumaderji versus Mitch Raposo. I was going to go Sumaderji here. Or I did go with Sumaderji, just thinking he'd be able to pick him apart at range, defend the takedowns, and that's essentially what he did. It was a split decision, which was an absolute joke. Sumaderji won 2 of those 3 rounds pretty convincingly in my mind, but it is what it is. Some of the rounds weren't as clear as I would like, but Mitch Raposo just didn't do enough, wasn't really pushing forward enough. Was down like 7 inches in reach, so just really couldn't get anything going against Sumaderji. So not the most fan-friendly fight, but a solid win by Sumaderji. So moving on, Mikhail Olechechek versus Cedricus Dumas. I was going with Olechechek. I thought he'd get the finish on the feet or the decision, and was able to get the finish over Cedricus Dumas. So his back was kind of against the wall, having several losses as of late, but Olechechek's one of those guys at middleweight, like, he can be an absolute nightmare for anybody in that division on any given night. So I didn't see Cedricus Dumas getting the win over him. I just didn't think he was talented enough, and definitely not the most skilled opponent that Olechechek's ever fought. He's fought a lot of really good guys, so I figured he'd be able to walk him down, defend any takedowns that came his way, and land the better strikes, and that's what he did. So great win by Olechechek. Not really sure where Dumas goes from here. So Julian Erosa versus Darren Elkins. Now this fight was just hard to watch, especially if you've been watching MMA for as long as I have. You know how tough Darren Elkins is, how he can pull fights out from the brink of defeat. Very tough guy, great cardio, very skilled, but this was just hard to watch. It looked like I didn't know if he just never recovered from that knee, I think it was, that he took. But it just looked to me like he was just kind of sloppy and like struggling around the cage. It was just really hard to watch. I was wanting the ref to step in and stop the fight sooner, especially considering how early they stepped in for the Woodson fight. But that's just a gimme to Julian Erosa. Like, if you win that fight, you were supposed to win. If you lose that fight, it's not a good look against a 40-year-old Darren Elkins. But Darren Elkins just needs to retire. Don't want to see him take any more beatings. If he goes out there against a guy who's a little bit more dangerous than Julian Erosa, it's going to be even harder to watch, and I don't want to see that. So give Julian Erosa somebody up a little bit up in the rankings, or further up in the rankings, and Darren Elkins just needs to kind of call it a day. Chase Hooper versus Jim Miller. I had Chase Hooper. Oh, sorry. I had Julian Rosa to win that one. I thought he'd get the sub, but I got the KO. So good performance. Chase Hooper versus Jim Miller. I had Chase Hooper by sub or decision. And the longer the fight went on, I was like, man, Chase Hooper's probably not going to catch Jim Miller in a sub. He's just so crafty. He's very experienced. Probably not going to put himself in a position to get caught. And he did a really good job. He did a really good job defensively. Chase Hooper, you know, he wasn't looking the best in the first round, but then he started to kind of to build after that and got the unanimous decision. So great win for Chase Hooper. He's still super young. He's like 25, 26 years old, taking out another vet like Jim Miller. It's a great feather in his cap. So great win for Chase Hooper. Verna Jandiroba versus Yan Jonan. I had Verna to get the sub or the decision, and she just wet blanketed Yan Jonan. And I guess not wet blanket's not a good saying, because she didn't just lay on her. She was actively looking for submissions, threatening with arm bars several times throughout the fight. A few more seconds left in some of those rounds, she probably would have got the finish. But kudos to Yan Jonan, going up against such a better jiu-jitsu fighter. Her ability to kind of not stay out of trouble, but not get submitted was I didn't see that coming. But Verna Jandiroba, I think she won every round, getting her takedowns, and not even have to like bail or sit to guard to get the takedown. She was just able to shoot, get her takedowns, and just really dominate Yan Jonan on the ground. I don't know if that's going to be enough for Verna Jandiroba to beat somebody like Zhang Weili. I think she is the better pure grappler than Zhang Weili, but I just don't know if she's going to have the footwork or the threats on the feet with the striking to get her to the ground, and if she'll be able to hold her on the ground. Because Zhang Weili, she's got very good jiu-jitsu, very good scrambling ability. So we'll see. We'll see if she gets that next fight, but I think that makes the most sense, especially for Jandiroba. She's getting up there in age, so they'll probably give her a title shot against Zhang Weili. I just don't know if I really pick her, just being kind of a specialist, whereas Zhang Weili's one of the best female fighters that we have, very well-rounded. So we'll see. Dan Ige versus Sean Woodson. I picked Sean Woodson to just land the better shots on the feet, keep it standing, win a decision, and that's what he was doing. Come to the third round, got rocked. Yes, he got rocked, was taking some shots, but he was covering up and was about to stand back up from his feet when the ref stepped in. One of the worst stoppages I've ever seen. The ref should have been kicked out of the stadium, but then we saw him back later in the card for some reason. I think the athletic commission gives these guys their assignments prior to the card starting, so it was probably already on the roster for him to get back in there, unfortunately. But awful stoppage. Like, these guys are cage fighters, and I hate to say it, I'm not a glutton for blood or damage, but it's like I'd rather have a late stoppage than an early stoppage. I want finality in these fights. The fighters want finality. They don't want anything to be questioned. They want to go out on their shield. They're fighters. They're fighting in a cage. Let them go out. These guys, I guarantee if you ask 99% of these guys, they're like, if there's a fighting chance that I can still win this fight, don't stop the fight. And you've got idiots like this guy stepping in there when he was obviously fine. Obviously fine. Just like blows my mind that this stuff still happens in 2025 in the UFC, that these refs are just like. Moving on. I had Woodson to win that fight, if you couldn't tell. Moving on, Dominic Reyes versus Nikita Krylov. I had Reyes as an underdog to win this one. I thought he'd be able to defend the takedowns, would be better with the striking, and I thought he'd catch Krylov coming in, and that's what he did. Krylov he's kind of sloppy. He's effective, but sloppy at times, so I thought there was openings. He kind of crashes in, and when he did, Dominic Reyes caught him with that left hand that he catches, tons of people with. Weidman caught a lot of fighters with that same setup. So great win by Dominic Reyes. He's on the rise again. He's gonna make it his claim for 205, and then he's gonna move up and challenge John Jones and beat him for the second time. I'm calling it now. Dominic Reyes on the rise. Gene Silva takes on Bryce Mitchell. I had Gene Silva to win this one. I thought he'd get the finish. I didn't see a submission happening, but Gene Silva showed, one of the questions in this one was, can he defend the takedowns? Oh, he was taken down by Charles Jourdain, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, but that's a completely different fight, completely different stylistic matchup than this one. He knows Bryce Mitchell's going to be shooting the entire fight, so he's probably drilling takedown defense for the last 3 months, and it showed. Bryce Mitchell couldn't get him to the ground. He was landing the better strikes, dropped him, was stunting out there, emoting. sky's the limit for Gene Silva. You know, I've been saying it for a while now. Future contender, future champ. Again, one of the fighting nerds. 19-0 now, or maybe no, 20-0 now with the Tulio and the Gene Silva win. These guys are, you know, 20-0. At least that core group. There's some fighting nerds like Bruno Silva, who I think it's Bruno Silva, who aren't undefeated like these guys. But looked great against Bryce Mitchell. I imagine he'll get a couple more wins and get a title shot. But yeah, looked great. I mean, it's hard to pick any kind of weaknesses that he has, considering he was defending all the takedowns, landing the better strikes, and then submits Bryce Mitchell, who's known as the submission artist, the grappler. So couldn't look better for the guy. You know, talking during the fight, barking at him, joking around. You know, he's very entertaining and finishes fights. So yeah, Gene Silva is going to be on a rocket ship on the UFC, in my opinion. Yair Rodriguez versus Patricio Pitbull. I picked Yair Rodriguez. I thought he's obviously the bigger, longer guy, you know, with crazy dexterity in his legs, great kicks. I thought he'd be able to manage the distance, land the better strikes, keep it on the feet, because if it goes to the ground, he's usually just an absolute victim on the ground, as we've seen kind of in the past. But was able to just kind of shut down Pitbull. He landed some strikes, he landed some combinations here and there, but was able to just really kind of keep it where he wanted to, keep his distance, land his kicks, and win a decision. So very impressive by Yair. It sucks for Patricio Pitbull. He's such a dog. Bellator GOAT, 2-time champion over there, coming over the UFC at 37, 38 years old. I wish he would have came over, you know, 4 or 5 years ago, but it is what it is. It's an absolute nightmare matchup for him coming over. It sounds like not a lot of people wanted to take that fight, which I understand because he's just a savage, but hopefully he gets in a little bit more favorable matchup and can start to get some wins in the organization, because I feel like he's very good. So Paddy Pimblett versus Michael Chandler. I went with Paddy Pimblett in this one. I thought that he could get the finish. I knew he was going to be the taller, rangier guy. I didn't think he was going to do as well striking as he did. I thought he would be shooting his own takedowns, or, you know, Michael Chandler would be looking to get takedowns, and he'd do very well on the ground. But I wasn't really sure how this fight would play out. I just knew that Michael Chandler had very low IQ. He wants to be entertaining versus win fights, whereas Paddy Pimblett is going to be very strategic, look for the holes, look for areas that he can take advantage of, and, you know, keep the fight there and win. And Paddy Pimblett just beat him everywhere. You know, I think Michael Chandler got a takedown early in the fight. He was able to just get back up to his feet. Had a really impressive kickoff. Opened his guard, kicked off the hips, immediately got back up to the feet in the fight. I think it was like the first or second round. Landing the more damaging strikes. You know, Michael Chandler backing up a lot, kind of running away at times. Just Paddy beat him up everywhere. Really shut down the doubters. A lot of people didn't think he had a chin. A lot of people were comparing this fight to his fight with Jared Gooden, saying, you know, he was getting tagged by Jared Gooden. He's going to get beat up by Michael Chandler. And he proved us all wrong. He looked like an absolute world beater, called out, you know, the top 5 of the division. I know he's number 12 right now. Maybe he takes Chandler's, you know, number 7 ranking, but I say give him a 5 through 10 opponent. And then if he gets past that, then yeah, give him one of the goats, the Poiriers, the Gaethjes. One of those guys was making fun of Arman Tsarukyan, which I thought was hilarious. I think he would beat him. Yeah, I love any of the matchups that we have, 1 through 10, particularly 1 through 5 for Paddy Pimblett to get some new blood in there. Super confident guy. People think he's cocky. I don't think he's cocky. I think he's confident and knows how good he is, and he's a winner. He's got that winner's mindset. So good to see him win. Sucks for Chandler, but I think we all have to come to the realization that Chandler is a little bit overrated. Yeah, he's exciting. He's a ball of muscle. He's explosive. But when it comes to getting in that cage, he's just not winning. He's not making the right decisions. And he's got all the tools to do so, though. So it's kind of him constantly fumbling fights in the cage that we've seen. So I don't know where he goes from here. I imagine the UFC is paying him a boatload of cash. So now that they can't really build young fighters off of him because he's not really a marquee win anymore, I don't know where he goes from here. So I'd be curious to see who his next matchup is. I think a lot of damage in this fight. Never really had anything going. Just not a great look for the guy. You know, at 38 years old in the UFC, hasn't won in years. So Volkanovski versus Diego Lopes. I went with Diego Lopes in this one. I thought he'd be able to beat Volk, maybe get him out of there, test his chin again, put him out. But he just didn't look. I mean, I was concerned in this one because Diego Lopes, he's kind of sloppy on the feet. He's got power, but he just kind of just wing punches, not a lot of technique. And Volkanovski just kind of out techniqued him on the feet, landing the better strikes, keeping his distance, kind of running at times. But again, he was landing more strikes, landing more effectively. So it is what it is. Did get dropped in the second round. The commentators on this pay-per-view are driving me up a wall. I'm over Joe Rogan. Dude needs to move on, go do something else. If you're not going to pay attention to the sport, you're going to talk about the same things every time, or you're going to cheer and obviously be biased to the guys that have been or are soon to be on your podcast. Like, I'm over it. And the same with DC. These guys are just very stale. They need to get Dean Thomas in there. Dean Thomas is the best person that they have. Dean Thomas, Paul Felder, those guys need to be doing the pay-per-views, not DC, not Joe Rogan. Get Michael Chiesa, Anthony Smith out of there and bring in some actually talented guys that have a mind for the game. I'm over this biased BS that I got to listen to with my hard-earned money every pay-per-view. But Volk, yeah, looked good. I think he won. My wife, we were thinking maybe it was 2-2 going into the final frame, but that was just wishful thinking because I had a big parlay on Diego Lopes. I think Volk was up 3-1. The fact that the commentators were saying that Volk still won round 2, like, you can't barely be edging around, get dropped at the end of it, and say that you still won the round. Like, let's just be honest here, all bias aside. So, but I thought he won. You know, worst case, he won 3-2. But more than likely he won 4 of the 5 rounds. But Diego Lopes just, I don't know, he just didn't look like he was getting anything going, wasn't moving his head. He needed to be crashing in towards the end of that fight, just, you know, going balls to the wall, crashing in, trying to catch Volk. And he just wasn't doing it. He kept pointing to the ground and, like, getting all mad at him at the last frame. It's like, dude, like, enough with the theatrics. Like, he's not just going to sit there and throw hands with you and risk losing the belt. Like, it's your responsibility to use your footwork to cut him off and force him to engage and get into a firefight. And if you're not doing that, then, you know, you had 25 minutes to do that, 24 minutes before this to do that. So I wish he would have been a little bit more aggressive, pushed forward a little bit more. I feel like he was tentative at times. Volkanovski was able to just kind of land the better strikes, move around, very good footwork, landing the leg kicks. He would shoot for takedowns whenever he felt like Diego Lopes was getting a little bit of momentum or was ready to kind of open up on him. So vintage Volk, he looked great. It's just bittersweet to me because I wish Volk, it's bittersweet in two ways. Like, I wish Volk didn't win the belt because another guy vacated it, and I wish he would have taken it from Ilia Topuria in a rematch, but I feel like he would have got chinned if he would have fought Ilia again. So it is what it is. I like Volkanovski a lot. I think Diego Lopes will be back. He'll learn a lot from this. Who does Volkanovski fight? Because I don't want to watch him fight Yair Rodriguez again, you know? So even though Yair Rodriguez looked amazing tonight, and I don't know. It's just who does he fight next? How many more fights does he have? Do we still consider him the GOAT? Is there going to be an asterisk on his name because he lost to Ilia Topuria, who moved up? Who knows? But kudos to Ilia Topuria because I feel like he could have probably ran that division for several years and then moved up to 55. But he wanted to fight Islam before he left, and I respect that. Hopefully he gets that fight. Hopefully they don't make him fight another legend at 55 and beat them and then fight Islam. But we'll see how it goes. But this was a really good card, all in all. Kind of some duds for fights. What were the duds? Sumideraji was a dud. Chase Hooper, I mean, it was a decision, but it was fun. It was back and forth. Guys constantly looking to finish. Verna Jandaroba, again, you know, constantly looking to finish. She wasn't just laying and praying on her holding position. She was looking to find the submissions or do damage. And, you know, Yair Rodriguez, that fight went to a decision, but again, very eventful. Honestly, the least eventful fight's probably the main event. Well, I can't say that, not the main event, but the main event wasn't as, you know, action-packed as I would have liked it to be. But still a very good performance. You know, a lot on the line for both of those guys. Diego Lopes trying to get the win, get the bag, be able to go back to his family back home, and Volk trying to just, you know, get back into the win column, get his belt back, and kind of reset. So all in all, great card. I think it delivered. A lot of really good finishes, a lot of really good fights. So again, went 10-2, did really well on this card. I think Sean Woodson would have pulled that one out. I think he would have recovered. This is me coping, but I think he would have recovered and won that one. And Volk won the fight very clearly, so it's hard to be upset about that one, and it's hard for me to get upset at a Volk win because I love the guy. I think he's great. I'm glad that he won. Again, he's 36. Diego Lopes, 30 years old. Got plenty of time in his career to keep making money and eventually get the belt, because I don't see Volk being around for very much longer. So again, appreciate everybody watching the content. Got a lot of views on my, and a lot of comments and things like that on my content this week, so really appreciate that. And I won't see you guys next week because it's Easter, but I will see you the week after that with all of my predictions and breakdowns. Thanks.